You've heard of borderline personality disorder, but have you heard of splitting? Here are some examples and what it means for those with BPD.
Splitting is a phenomenon in which a person, often with borderline personality disorders where we see it, will either see things as all good or all bad. There's no gray. This most often happens with people. So where this gets confusing is they may literally view someone as, this is the best doctor I've ever had. He is a lifesaver. There is no greater doctor. But the first time that doctor disappoints them, you are the worst doctor ever. I'm gonna post a bad Yelp review about you. You are a monster. So you went from pedestal to trash heap in a day.
In a day.
Versus you're a great doctor, however. There's no gray. So that tendency to split, it can be about people, it can be about situations. In some ways it can even be about themselves. This is the tendency in borderline personality disorder to not be able to view things holistically. So the best example I can give you is how an infant experiences its mother early in life, or its caregiver, if you will. When that baby wants its caregiver, let's call it mom, just to make it simple. When that baby wants mom, and mom's not there, it's bad mommy. Scream, 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 mommy comes, mommy feeds baby, good mommy. And that psychoanalytic theorists would argue those are experienced as two separate people. As the child's personality and psychology evolves, that gets integrated into a whole person.
Wow.
Sometimes mommy's there when she needs to be, sometimes she's not, but mommy's mommy, and I love her. Okay, that's an integrated whole. That idea of splitting can come from a couple of different places. If indeed a person with borderline personality did experience trauma earlier in life, the splitting may have been a defense. Let's say they were abused by someone. There was that good, safe version of that person, and then there was the dangerous, abusive version of that person. It's really hard for a child to reconcile all of that into one person. That tendency to split can then generalize.
Yeah.
For the person with borderline personality who's having a dark mood and then a light mood, again, same thing, it's hard to integrate. So that inability to integrate is where that splitting comes up. Splitting, however, is really confusing for the people around that individual. If they're not trained in mental health, they're saying, how could I have been such a great person this morning and now you think I'm the devil and it's lunchtime? The answer to that is simple, they're splitting. They almost view you as two different people. And I can say to you as a clinician, I've had clients who say, you're the worst therapist in the world, I hate you and I'm gonna quit therapy. And I have to calmly hold them, support them, in essence, almost like they're the crying baby, and say, you know, I understand you are upset, you know, I was late, or whatever the reason was to get upset at me, and hopefully see if we can integrate back to, not that I'm the greatest therapist ever, but simply that I'm their therapist, and we're working together.
You don't want them to go to that
I don't
extreme.
need them to think I'm the greatest therapist. I just need them to see that I'm a consistent presence in their life. Not all bad, not all good, but the therapist.
And then, do you tell them, hey, you just had an episode of splitting?
Yeah, you can point that out. Say,
wow.
You know, it's interesting. You're splitting me because yes, last week we were doing really well, and then I brought this up, and it's interesting how you're viewing me badly. Do you see how that might be similar to your sister?
Yeah.
Now, is that going to hit target every time? Heck no.
Right.
I've actually had clients throw things at my head. And that is how angry they'd get at the bad therapist. And you'll talk to people who are in these relationships and they were the bad partner, the bad sister, the bad friend versus the good one. So you start feeling in the presence of them like you're two different people, but they're experiencing you as two different people.
Yeah.
So a key part of therapy is to teach them how to integrate. In fact, that's why it's called
and grow
dialectic.
up a little bit, because a lot of it happens at
childhood.
Yeah, right.
But that's why the therapy is called dialectical behavior therapy. You're trying to integrate these two opposing viewpoints into one whole to understand that the world is mostly gray. And that's actually a big leap. And when you can get there, when you can succeed at that consistently in therapy, you've really done some good work with that client. Because once they can get there, they can soothe themselves and know, this is this person, and it's okay, but it takes a lot of work.
Can someone split or experience episodes of splitting and not be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder?
Yeah, I mean, we all do it sometimes, right? Like, okay, today you're a good husband because you empty the dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
You know, we do that. Like, I like vacation husband, right? I like, you know, Saturday morning wife kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
You know, so we do it in a way. I mean, I think that we keep that, like we'll often, and I work with couples and they'll often say, I like my vacation spouse a lot, and that reminds me the woman I fell in love with, but the stress and the traffic and the kids, that makes this harder. Right. But I think that we can have a conversation about that, and then in therapy you can calibrate people to see, you do see it's the same person, and people will chuckle and say, of course I do. But I do think that there's always some propensity to splitting. It's how we started in this world.
I feel like cats split a lot. they're like, get out of here.
Get out of here. I love you.
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
and you know, we do that. Listen, when somebody's giving us what we want, we are more fond of them, but we are able to see, listen, in a healthy relationship, we are able to see that this person's not going to be what we want them to be all the time, but we can see them holistically, consistently, and in ideal circumstances, unconditionally.
Well, I've been doing a lot of these interviews with Medcircle and interviewing a ton of experts, and there was one thing Dr. Jacobson said to me, and it really just made this light go off in my head, which is, you can have all of these symptoms of depression, splitting, borderline personality, whatever it is, bipolar disorder, but if it's not negatively affecting your life, then you don't get the diagnosis.
That's exactly right.
And I thought, that is something else, because we list all of these things. We're talking about borderline, and I thought, yeah, sometimes I'm like that, but it doesn't negatively affect my life, so I don't get the diagnosis.
And that's where sort of the foundation of all psychiatric diagnosis is, because there's such a wide range of what constitutes normal. If you've constructed a life where whatever pattern of behavior you have is working for you, it's not, and in general it's not bothering anyone else, you're fine. You're good. So it's really that sense of subjective distress that's the issue. And people with borderline personality disorder experience a lot of subjective distress. So they are quite often seen in treatment, but in psychiatric settings, psychological settings, even in medical settings.
Real quick, for someone who believes they are splitting, what are the tips for them to cope with that?
Here's what's interesting. People who split typically don't have insight into the fact that they're splitting. They would, if they had insight, they wouldn't be doing it. But
right now, if someone's watching this and they go, "Oh my gosh, I split. My wife always tells me I'm going this way and this way, and I'm actually doing that." What? If
a person actually is reflecting on saying, "Wow, I have a real tendency to engage in splitting," my first and foremost recommendation would be definitely seek out psychotherapy if you're not already there, because that's a place to have this conversation, to find out what's going on and to get the skills to help you do that kind of integration, as well as do some of the historical work to figure out where this might have come from. If you are already in therapy, it's important you share this with your therapist and say, you know, I'm wondering, do you think I do engage in splitting? Because some therapists may actually be more tentative to put that out there as a in-your-face interpretation kind of thing. And say, do you ever notice this pattern in me? And see if your therapist notices it, because if they're eagle-eyed, they'll definitely have noticed it.
And if your therapist says, I don't know what splitting is, maybe it's time to split from that therapist.
It's time to split. And go ahead and find someone who gets you and gets it.
What about if I'm in a relationship with somebody who is splitting? What do I do?
If you're in a relationship with someone who's splitting, a couple of things. Number one, hopefully your partner gets into therapy. Hopefully you're getting individual therapy as a place of support, and maybe even couples therapy. But also, as a partner, to say, hey, listen, I hear you. I can hear that you're angry at me right now. Like, you can reflect to them that when you're the bad partner, you know, however, I made a mistake. I own it, to take responsibility. But I'm still me. And just remind them of that. I'm still me. I love you. You know, those reassurances that I'm still here. Because remember, what's the fear in borderline personality? Bad you is going to abandon them. And they want good you back, who's not going to leave. That you're all one person, people make mistakes, that you can get past this. It's not the end of the world. But that requires a lot of therapeutic help on both sides of the coin.
And to play devil's advocate, what you mentioned in a previous video, that does not mean you should be the punching bag for your spouse or whatever relationship this is. If you're getting nowhere fast and you're in couples therapy and you're doing whatever you can, it's not, I mean, I am a big believer in this. I do not believe, you didn't make this problem. Thank you. You know? Yes. So it's not your job to undo it. No one can unring it. And you're not going to. You're not going to. No, you're not. And there are points in a lifetime in a relationship where you do have to say enough and step back. Not all of these things. If you're someone's partner, you're not their therapist. Don't confuse those roles. you need to quote that. That's chapter 4 of your next book right there. You are their partner, not their therapist.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Ramani, I'm glad you are my partner here. This is always so eye-opening. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Your next step is to head on over to medcircle.com and sign up for the Medcircle Digest. What is it? Well, Medcircle will send you the latest articles and the latest videos on the mental health topics that matter most to you. So go to medcircle.com, sign up for that digest, and let's keep this journey on better mental health moving forward.